first time since 2016, top-level sports car racing is back at Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama. Back then, it was known as Pirelli World Challenge, but today it is the cars and the stars of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, that are set to go qualifying for a pair of races here at Barber Motorsports Park that mean we are closing in on the culmination of a season. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. It's Amanda Busick down in the pits on a wonderful day weather-wise here in northern Alabama. Beautiful clear skies overhead, giving way after quite a bit of rain in the afternoon yesterday. And Calvin, on a weekend where there was no promoter test day on Thursday, many teams had not tested here previously. A lot of drivers have never been here to Barber, certainly in a GT car. Losing out on some of that track time in the dry yesterday in practice too. That has all of these teams on the back foot.
I think it certainly does, and I think a lot of these teams will go into this qualifying session here this morning with a little bit of an unknown in terms of their setup. Certainly when you come to a new racetrack, you want that seat time, you want that track time, and that was certainly compromised a little bit by the rain. It wasn't a heavy rain, but it certainly didn't really give the drivers any dry running in that second session yesterday. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a curious qualifying session, and add to that, this racetrack has great rhythm, great flow. It's enjoyable to drive, but I think overtaking opportunities, there are not many around here, so qualifying and track position is going to be a key setup in terms of a key to victory here this weekend. So this qualifying session is super, super important.
That's what we've heard from just about everybody in the paddock. You need to qualify well if you're going to have a good weekend. And Calvin, we're into the business end of the season now. Just 2 of these 90-minute sprint-style races left on the calendar, and then the Indianapolis 8-hour next month with double points on offer there. A total of 100 points still up for grabs, but it's going away pretty quickly.
It really is. It certainly, there's a couple of teams who could clinch this weekend, and there's other chasers who need a really strong weekend to go to Indy with a chance of that championship still.
Let's talk about championships, and we'll talk about some of the drivers in the mix. One of them is standing by with Amanda Busick.
Yeah, we'll get into the championship conversation here today, I'm sure, for Neil Verhagen, but he walked up to me holding that little guy, and I said, "What's in the cup?" He said, "None of my business." So maybe some championship fuel sitting in that little cup right there, but the guys are talking about qualifying and the importance of what it is here from the track time that you guys have so far. Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, I got my coffee coming here, trying to get as ready as possible for qualifying. As you said, this track specifically, it's very difficult to overtake on. It's going to be the most important part of our weekend. So, yeah, a lot of our competitors have been here testing before. We didn't have the chance to come test here, so a little bit of an uphill battle for us, but we felt pretty confident already yesterday, and we'll see what we can do.
Neil, I remember talking to you in Sebring, and I remember you saying to me that you want to win Samantha Tan a GT3 championship and one for ST Racing. How close are you guys?
I mean, we'll see after this weekend. We're still playing it race by race. We're just doing the best we can. You know, until Road America, we had a podium streak up until the entire season. So, you know, a little mistake from us in Road America, which cost us a podium. One we'll take on the chin, but yeah, we're going to look back to getting into our rhythm of being back on the podium again.
Good luck today, Neil. I did hear engines fired in the background, guys. Qualifying is set to go here at Barber. Energy from the drivers. Kyle Washington said this place is like a skate park.
That's a great description. Thank you, Amanda. Good to hear from Neil Verhagen as well. He and Samantha Tan, leaders in the Pro-Am points, coming in by 45. It's been a remarkable season. You heard him allude to the fact that they had been on the podium in every single race up until Road America race number 1. Nevertheless, they did bounce back in race 2 with the podium, a second-place result. They come in with a 45-point advantage. They could conceivably clinch going into the 8-hour leaving this weekend.
Yeah, essentially, they just need to outscore the Turner duo of Rothberg and Foley by 5+ points, and the championship would be sealed up. But now we look at this amazing racetrack, 17 turns, about 2 1/3 miles here. Lots of elevation change, very challenging. A lot of load on that left front tire, as you can see, with this clockwise direction of the racetrack. And tire deck is going to be a big factor here. This surface is pretty abrasive, but I did a ride around the track yesterday with Eric Filgueras, and these corners just keep coming at you. It's really pretty crazy out there in terms of the flow and the momentum and what you demand from the racetrack all the time. The car seems to be up on its toes a lot here. Not a lot of top speed. The biggest speed is taken down into turn 12 in the GT3 cars. That's about 145 compared to 165 that we saw at Road America in the last rounds of the championship. So it's more about braking ability, but really cornering and maintaining that time tire grip through the course of the stint in the race today will be key.
Massive elevation change around a lap here as well. You've seen it on TV before, but how about your impressions when you were sitting in one of these cars?
Well, some blind crests, and I think what it does, we talk about a lot of the drivers who don't have experience here. Pros will get to grips with it when you have blind corners and things, but for the AM drivers in this field, it's a much bigger challenge in terms of making sure you've got that car exactly positioned correctly, because you're committed with big speed, and you've got to have the car placed correctly as you crest these turns and make sure that you're landing in the right spot on the other side.
2 qualifying sessions this morning, each 15 minutes long. Qualifying 1, which we're watching right here, that sets the grid for race 1. Qualifying 2, which comes up immediately after this session, sets the grid for race 2. The drivers that qualify in their respective qualifying sessions, they start those respective races, and that is up to the teams this year to choose which driver qualifies and starts which race. That has been a key part of the strategy for a number of these teams, Regulator Racing in particular, with Philip Ellis and Jeff Burton. How do some of the intricacies of this track, though, play into that strategy here this weekend, where passing may be more at a premium than anywhere else we've been this year?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, it's not easy to drive through the field like we've seen Philip Ellis do on occasion, and we've seen Bill Oberlin. They've employed a similar strategy with he and Varun Choksi. So yeah, I think it is tough. I think at Road America you can see Philip Ellis just go on a charge, just laying down fast lap after fast lap, and drove his way back up through the field. That's not going to be as easy here. But the other thing is yellows. I mean, are there going to be mistakes made? And that's what these teams really need, particularly when Philip Ellis is starting second in the race tomorrow. He really wants that yellow, and maybe there's a chance of seeing one, because it's easy to make a mistake around this racetrack and end up in one of those gravel traps.
Early laps starting to pop up on the board, or they will here shortly, because Bill Oberlin is the first to trip the timing line on a flying lap, and he goes to the top, as you would expect, of course, with a 1:22.099 second lap. We did see in dry running in practice 1 earlier this weekend the best time sent by Kenton Cook in the Random Vandals GT3 entry at a 1:20.7, so there is some time to be found, as you'd expect, but it is a green track after the rain we had in the afternoon and into the evening last night.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see someone maybe dip into that high 19 range. We'll have to see. We really don't have a true indicator. As Neil Verhagen suggested, some of the teams do have a little bit of testing time, so they'll certainly have a leg up on the competition. Turner Motorsport were here, for example, with Foley and Rothberg, so I'll be curious to see what Foley can do in his stint in the second qualifying session here in a few minutes.
This team did not test here. This is Connor Daly, the IndyCar star, coming off of a podium at the Oval at the Milwaukee Mile 1 week ago, and so he will be joining the Random Vandals team for the first time here this weekend. He told me yesterday, in all the testing he's done in this car, he has never driven on a set of sticker tires until right now. This is his first chance to sample this GT3 BMW with Pirelli stickers, and he's been quick, second fastest thus far.
Yeah, there's his teammate Kenton Cook, who's got a lot more experience in this type of machinery, of course. Admittedly, not a ton of time with the BMW, but certainly Mercedes and other opportunity that he's had. So he's really been the lead in terms of the drive. They've also had Connor DiFilippo, they'll be sharing this car with at the Indy 8. Be involved in some of their testing to give them direction on this BMW chassis. But Connor's looking forward to this opportunity. He said it's really taken me a while to get my head around the ABS system. He said, I've done Lamborghini Super Trofeo that had an ABS system, but very different. So he said, I'm gradually getting there. He said, Kenton's been wonderful to work with in terms of kind of teaching me, showing me the ropes with this race car. But I think he's going to be quick enough to get the job done. I think he and Kenton will be very competitive here this weekend.
2 cars in this field have drivers that have made IndyCar starts here at Barber. This is the other one. Luke Amar's doing the qualifying in this session, but his teammate Zach Veach made his IndyCar debut here at Barber back in 2017. I know he's excited to get back behind the wheel here at this track.
I think that created an opportunity for someone else to make their debut. Come on, share the story you told us at dinner last night.
Yeah, it's a cool link, I have to say. At the time, Zach was transitioning from what was then known as Indy Lights, trying to pursue an IndyCar career, didn't have a seat, so he was doing some media. Actually was working as a pit reporter for the IndyCar radio network and got the call up to fill in for an injured J.R. Hildebrand here at Barber. IndyCar radio needed a new pit reporter. I put my hand up. In fact, funny story, they asked, are you going to be there already to cover anything? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I had no plans. I had no hotel, nothing booked.
Zach Veach is the only guy, when you put your hand up next to him, you're actually more in the air than he is.
I know. But I always joke with Zach that he helped launch me, and I do thank him for it. And I think it's worked out well for him, too. A good IndyCar career for Zach, and now focused on sports car racing and doing a nice job this year. Honestly, their weekend at Road America, they were on the cusp of a win in race one. Just a little snafu in the pits with that seat insert. If that doesn't happen, there's a very good chance they win a race.
Yeah, I think that Acura is super competitive. It's a great team. They've won championships before, and you know, they got started late, had 0 testing time before they showed up at Sonoma, and then we talked about this weekend being compromised a little bit with the weather when we had the track issues there, so that was not the ideal start for them in terms of preparation to their 2024 campaign, but they've been getting stronger and stronger as this summer has progressed.
Philip Ellis qualifying, he's been the pole master, and you'd expect that because primarily he's been up against the less experienced drivers in these lineups, especially in the Pro-Am class here this year with this alternate strategy that Regulator Racing has employed since the start of the season at Sonoma. A little bit late getting out on the track, but that's also part of their strategy. Jumps to 4th, and now I think we'll really see what Philip Ellis can do. This, we suspect, will be his push lap.
Yeah, this is coming through turns 2 and 3. This little sweeper here is flat out through here. Going to be hitting about 140 miles an hour as he crests the hill down into turn 5, also known as Charlotte's Web. Long duration, then getting on the power early. This is where you're really teasing those tires, trying to get the power down and accelerate off of this turn. And this is really a fun little complex here, coming down in towards the museum turn. This is 8 and 9. It really eat up the curb right there. Bound right over the top of that. The Mercedes is really good and compliant in that type of curbing situation.
It's a bit like a mini corkscrew at Laguna Seca, the way you plunge down the hill and you use the curbing. It's a really cool complex.
Went personal best in Sector 1, not the best overall, so he's got to dig a little bit deeper. Another personal best Sector 2, so he's building nicely.
But 6/10 off of Luca Mars, who provisionally
bailed on it.
Is in pole position. Yeah, you're right.
Doing a little reset here.
He does have one of those BMWs from ST Racing right behind him. Can't back out too much. To gather it back up and get back on the power. This has been the car on the hot streak since they started in the championship at Circuit of the Americas with this Pro Class entry. Alec Udell and Tommy Milner are undefeated in class. 5 of those 6 wins have been overall as well. It's been remarkable what DXDT has been able to do.
Yeah, and obviously when they knew that campaign was coming on, essentially mid-season, missing the first couple of events, first 4 rounds of our championship was like, let's go out, try and win some races. They've done that. But now suddenly there's championship hopes because they sit 35 points behind Adam Adelson and Elliott Skier. If they win out, if Adam and Elliott finish right behind them every single race, then they would still claim the championship. I look at the last 4 races. They've been outscored, Adelson and Skier have, by 37 points by this race car. And if they do the same thing over the next, let's call it 4 25-point rounds, there's obviously a doubleheader at Indy with the 8-hour, but that would be enough to win the championship for Udell and Milner. But so far this weekend, Corvette hasn't been right at the top of the charts. We'll see what they can come up with here in qualifying.
Ellis pushing once again. Does he have life left in those Pirelli P0s? He's 3/10 off pole through the first 2 sectors. How about Sector 3 onto the pit straight for Philip Ellis? He trips that timing beacon and jumps to P2 overall. Just about a 1/10.5 off of Luca Mars' pole time.
Yeah, and that's a surprise, right? I mean, Ellis has really been the pole machine in terms of running first in this session here against a bundle of the AMs. He obviously got another AM in Oberlin, Connor Daly. I kind of say he and Kenton are really similar pace in that Random Vandals machine here this weekend. And this is really putting the pressure here on Adam and Adelson. Right now he's only 9th overall, 5th in the pro class. So you're feeling that championship pressure from having a fun ride and winning the first couple of rounds of this championship. Suddenly you're feeling the heat from behind, and that can change the dynamic immediately.
Still seemed pretty loose when I saw him throughout the paddock. He's on those headlight flashers right now. This is the lone AM class car here this weekend from A of Corsa, Jay Schreibman. And Is he going to let him play through? He is. How much does that cost Adelson, who appears to be on a push lap right now?
Yeah, I think it might cost him a little bit. That is not ideal there through that really high commitment chicane there. That's the second of those truly high-speed switchbacks. That's 12 and 13. And I think he's bailing here, and now he's getting a late start there. I'm not sure he's going to ramp up his speed here to cross the line and get a next flyer here. You really need to start the acceleration run a little bit earlier. So from that stripe into turn one, he'll have lost a little bit of pace there by having to control his spacing with the traffic up ahead.
Mars and Ellis on the provisional front row right now. That would be the first pole of the season for Luca Mars and Racer's Edge. If it holds up, great performance from him. Class pole to Philip Ellis.
Saw Adam Adelson and Elliott in the museum last night having a look around at the Lotus collection, and Adam was saying, I get so many comments about our livery that it's Lotus, and he said, yeah, it certainly gave me a little bit of inspiration, but he said, how cool to see. I mean, this museum here, if anyone listening hasn't been to this museum, put it on your list of to-dos, because it is simply amazing. I haven't been through there in nearly 20 years, and it's gobsmacking in terms of how many bikes and cars that George Barber has put together in his collection here. The structure of the building itself is impressive, but the machinery is just mouth-watering.
1,600 vintage racing motorcycles and cars. Over 900 motorcycles in the museum alone. Bikes that date back from the 19th century to the present. It's considered the largest motorcycle museum in the world, and it also houses the largest collection of Lotus race cars anywhere in the world. It is breathtaking. Beautiful architecture as well, and just the way that everything is displayed. It is not to be missed.
Adam Adelson on that lap went a little bit quicker, but hasn't moved him up the charts any, so they've got to keep digging deep in that Wright Motorsports Porsche.
That is big. Right now, they are last in the pro class, down in 9th overall. Their championship rivals sit in 2nd in class here in this qualifying run. So definitely, it could be another one of those big swings. We've seen it a couple of times this season. Mentioned Day of Corsa before. They're here with 2 cars this weekend. We welcome back Custodio Toledo, who drives with Riccardo Agostini, very quick Italian driver, who had a pole position at Circuit of the Americas the last time we saw these two. In the meantime, Alec Udell just wins a provisional pole. This is that championship rival to the 120 we've been talking about, and Udell to the top spot by 35 thousandths of a second.
Wow, that is a really nicely crafted lap there. Just continued to build speed and has got the sweet spot with those Pirelli P0s and jumps to the top. As you said, it's a minuscule margin, just 0.03 of a second, but it's enough to lead the pack here with time running out.
And that bumps Philip Ellis to the 2nd row of the grid, still provisionally on pole in Pro-Am, but their entire strategy is predicated on getting Philip out in front, building a gap in race 1 for Jeff Burton then to manage. Starting on the 2nd row does not play into their hands.
Not at all. But, you know, if the other cars have pace, the 2 pro cars, he can just ride along with them and just really try and get the rest of the Pro-Am cars in the field and see if that strategy can still come together.
Do want to give a call as well, as looks like Philip Ellis is done for this qualifying effort. Fist bumps all around. But a call to Connor Daly in his first ever qualifying effort in this BMW. He is the quickest BMW driver up against the likes of Bill Oberlin. That is quite impressive for a driver who's never been on sticker slicks here in this race car before today.
Yeah, really impressive run there, and I think impressive that the Random Vandals machine is showing that sort of pace. I think they had some kind of technical glitch. Didn't really get to the bottom of it, but the car at Road America didn't really seem to have the straightaway speed there, and I think there was something, a little bit amiss there. So I don't think we really saw the true potential of their car and their pace with their drivers who ran that weekend. But nonetheless, they've certainly come out of the box strong here this weekend. I think Kenton will definitely be a factor of a potential pole for race 2 here.
Adam Adelson did get closer. He jumps to 6th overall. It's still at the back of the pro class cars, but it keeps some of that out of class traffic out of the way and will give them a chance to fight for some of those big points paying positions as they try and lock up a championship. He and Elliott Skier in their first year in the pro class. Alec Udell gets the congratulations from factory driver Tommy Milner. We mentioned it was an impressive qualifying performance for Connor Daly. He'll line up 4th overall, 3rd in class. Let's hear from him now with Amanda.
As ever a racing driver would, I asked Connor Daly how qualifying went. He said, not great. What are your reflections of the session here at Barber?
Oh, it's just, honestly, it's a new world for me. This is the first ever new set of tires I've been able to run. So we've done some testing, but I've always been on old tires and heavy fuel. So we would have liked to have run a new tire yesterday to get ready, but it rained. So just behind for myself. So the driver didn't do his job, but the team has done a great job. They've done a great job giving us a fast car, preparing. Obviously, they're very new to this category, so everyone's done a great job. BMW's done a great job supporting us as well. So Kenton is going to really get what it's capable of. But yeah, I just disappointed in myself only because of the just never run a new set before, so needed to take advantage of it a little bit more.
I'll give you some positive news. You were the fastest BMW of the set on track. What strengths will you bring to this paddock this weekend?
I mean, honestly, I think my experience here in general should pay off. I mean, I've raced here in a lot of different things over many years, so just excited to try to just grow with this team, and they've given me a chance to be a racing driver, which is something that I'm very, very thankful for. So, yeah, appreciate Paul and V-Brick and everyone at Random Vandals. They're a great group of people, like a family, and Kenton's a great teammate.
Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Well, he's a tough critic of himself, and I suppose that's what it takes to succeed at this level.
Well, yeah, his career and the levels that he's run at, he's expecting more. Do you know what I mean? Okay, as Connor Daly coming in, he doesn't have a lot of GT experience, but he didn't rock up here to suddenly be qualifying mid-pack. He wanted to put that car right at the front, and I think he's just frustrated by the limitations with the prep. Didn't really set up that qualifying session. He knew there was more there. The car had more to give. He didn't quite wrestle enough speed out of it. And another thing is, from an egotistical standpoint, you got your teammate now going to jump in who does know what the limit of that race car is. And I think after this session, Con will be looking at their respective times saying, well, that's what I need to be. But he can then look at the data, see where Kenton was maybe dragging. Potentially, he hasn't even got on the racetrack yet, but potentially there's more speed there.
Yes, it's part of that learning process. Well, a relatively clean session, but there were a few moments. Kyle Washington got a glimpse of this here, had a bit of a wild ride. Took out some signage, but otherwise was able to keep it off the wall.
Well, again, we talked about the commitment level around here and some of these crests and placement of the car. It can get you a little bit out of sync, and then you're off for a ride. And particularly with the rain that we've had, a little bit like a VIR, you can go for a ride at VIR. If it's been raining, you hope you arrest the speed before you hit something hard, and Kyle got a little bit lucky on that one.
Also had to serve a drive-through penalty at one point in that session due to a pit speed violation. But got that taken care of. Kyle Washington will start 13th in the race later on today. Provisional race, or make that qualifying results. Alec Udell on pole by 35 thousandths, continuing that strong run for DXDT Racing and Corvette. Luca Mars and Zach Veach will line up in the second spot. Then Philip Ellis on the Pro-Am pole. See how that strategy plays out for them this weekend. Connor Daly 4th. Bill Oberlin, Adam Adelson down in 6th. Did have that good late lap, but he's 0.5 of a second off of the next car in class. They've got some work to do. Rothberg, Morris, Tan, and Peterson, the top 10. Toledo in his return. Schwest, Washington, LaBerge, Elias Sabo, and Jay Schreidman, rounding out the 16 cars that took part in qualifying 1. It's been a remarkable run for Alec Udell and DXDT Racing. And the pole man is standing by now with Amanda.
We're just watching the cars pull off here at pit lane, and Alec, you put it on the pole for the Robo pole position yet again. You said that you don't think the storyline is the weight being added to the Corvette. What is it?
I think it's just our team doing the best we can to execute and extract the most out of the car. It's really tricky today. The rain washed all the grip away, so I think it was a matter of being able to adapt. And for me, it was trying to put everything, a little bit together towards the end. And I think the track was getting a little better each lap with more of the Pirelli rubber going down. So happy with the DXDT crew, and a little loud. Yeah, and I think we may not have the outright fastest car, but I put a good lap together, and yeah, happy to see what Tommy and Brian can do here, and look for the race this afternoon.
Just quickly, what insight did you give Tommy?
Just that the braking zones did not have as much grip as they did yesterday, and some of the high-speed stuff a little more tricky. So
thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Good information to pass along.
Well, you said earlier 20.7 was the fast time yesterday. We're looking at low 21s in that first session, so the grip level isn't there. The prediction of maybe high 19s that we said earlier may not be possible, just because, as he said, the range yesterday were heavy enough to wash the rubber away, make it more green. It's going to ramp up. It's going to be great by this afternoon for the race time, but as we have all of the other classes running out here today, but certainly for this second qualifying session, who knows what that pole lap needs to be here. I mean, you got all of the pros out there, bar a couple of them that like that alternate strategy. They're going to be digging deep. The track is going to rubber up a little bit more. Car's a little bit lighter on fuel as well, because you're not allowed to refuel between the two sessions. So I expect to see times mid-20s possibly.
Green flag is out. Trent Hindman first to start. Well, I take that back. Not the first to start a flying lap. Saw one of the AF Ferraris ahead of him. Neil Verhagen, always a threat for pole, it would seem, and this BMW platform, to the chagrin of many who are waiting for the BMW to find a track that doesn't suit it. Doesn't seem like it's happening here. The BMW's been awfully strong at Barber since these teams rolled off the truck.
Yeah, it really has, and they adjust the BOP based on the configuration of the racetrack, and this is a racetrack where they felt that BMW needed a bit of help, so they actually have a little bit stronger in terms of balance of performance data than they had at Road America even. So to the consternation of some of the teams, but they do a great job, the technical committee, in terms of putting all those checks and balances in place. And I think a lot of these other groups, I mean, Elliott Skier has been so impressive to me over the last couple of years, and he seems to be able to wring the neck of this Porsche. I think he's going to be knocking on the door of the front row here.
Now he knows what's at stake. That championship lead that at one point looked unassailable has dwindled, and they know they need to perform here in the final few races of the season. You really don't want to go into Indianapolis in that 8-hour race that pays double points. There's the added jeopardy that comes with an endurance race, a format you haven't run in all year long, where things like fuel savings start to matter, where you haven't had to think about that. You've got the interlopers coming in from Intercontinental GT Challenge, additional entries that pop up, drivers you haven't raced around all year that join as third drivers in these lineups. All of these extra variables add to the level of peril in that 8-hour race. So the greater point I'm trying to make is you'd really like to go into that 8-hour with a healthy championship margin and not have to put your fate in the hands of the racing gods.
Yeah, it's a real wild card event, and they put together a great championship season. They've had a couple of wins, 7 podiums out of the 10 events so far, so very rarely do we see them. I think it was the second round at VIR where they didn't have a podium run. But look at that. That is right on the edge there. That is total commitment there from Elliott Skier as he starts to ramp up his speed here. This is that high-speed second chicane. That's 12 and 13. Then this kind of triple apexer here coming up. This is 14, 15, 16. To get super patient, get the car back over to the right-hand side of the road to set up for this final corner. This is 17. And then a burst of speed down this front straightaway up to about 136 miles an hour into turn 1.
Elliott Skier goes to P2. Riccardo Agostini, the fastest. He's a pole sitter already this season. How about Kenton Cook? What can he do for Random Vandals? Just their second weekend racing at the GT3 level. And this Racer's Edge Acura just narrowly deprived of pole for race 1. What can the IndyCar veteran Zach Veach do here at the IndyCar circuit?
Kenton Cook to the top there with that lap that he put together. Purple in the second sector on his next lap that he's got going, so he's got another good one going. He's at a 21.2 now, which we talked about. That's what, 3 tenths quicker, a couple of tenths quicker than Connor Daly did earlier, but looks like 19s are possible here as we're early in this session.
Kyle Marcelli out of it. You saw a moment ago, off to the side of letting some of these cars that are on fast laps make their way past. How about Agostini here, trending towards pole through the first 2 sectors, but only by the narrowest of margins. For AF Corsa, the proud Ferrari team that scored the win in the World Endurance Championship just a week ago at Circuit of the Americas with the Ferrari prototype. Agostini does go to the top. with a lap time of a 1:20.969.
Yeah, it was a good lap. I tell you what, through one of those high-speed switchbacks, saw the car's a little bit loose. Spoke to Oz Negri, his teammate, in the other car this weekend. He said the Ferrari is not ideally suited to that. Let's see what Kennan comes through with. He's just shy of that pole time, sits on the front row, though, at a 21.0.
Less than a tenth of a second off of pole. How about Zach Veach, a purple middle sector, but sectors 1 and 2 weren't quite enough. Only good enough for 4th, and Zach goes for a spin.
We've seen a couple of cars have moments here and survive, so everyone's living right on the edge here in qualifying this morning, trying to find the limits. That all comes down to not really knowing the racetrack as well as they'd ideally hope for coming into a qualifying session. Green racetrack, not a lot of prep time. Admittedly, Zach knows the circuit from his single-seater days, but nonetheless, this is a different animal around this track.
Former race winner here in Indy Next competition, couple of podiums as well in 6 starts in that level of single-seater racing before making his way up to the NTT IndyCar Series. Tommy Milner in the pole-sitting car from qualifying 1 just a few moments ago. Alec Udell's teammate and Corvette factory driver, the man responsible for many of the testing miles on this new Z06-based GT3 Corvette.
He was purple in Sector 3 on that last lap, hopping the curb there on the entry down to through the museum turn. That museum is off to the left-hand side for the drivers there. Ramping up here, you don't have to crack quite as much speed through here, maybe close to flat out and qualifying there. Low fuel and then ramp up the speed. This is the highest speed you'll see on this race circuit, about 145. Tightens up there on that second apex there, that right-hander. Floating the speed over the top and then really trying to control things here on the entry.
Andy Lee in the Flying Lizard BMW, heads up driving, sees Tommy coming, gives him plenty of room. Not a great middle sector for Tommy though. He comes to the timing line, had the 4th fastest time. Can he improve? Not enough, still 4th.
Yeah, a few tenths off on that lap, not a great middle sector, so we'll try and regroup here a little bit, see if he can perfect. Teams are making some tire pressure adjustments here. Had to adjust anything on the car per se, no wing angles and things like that.
Saw Thomas Sargent leaving the pit lane at the number 32 from G&G. Thomas would have raced here in Porsche single make competition, I believe.
Real talent, this kid.
Neil Verhagen goes P1 by 48 thousandths of a second at a 1:20.921.
Nice lap there. Haven't seen much out of Robbie Foley yet. He needs to respond here. Really the main threat to Verhagen and Tan for that championship, 45 points back. As we said earlier, Tan and Verhagen can outscore Rothberg and Foley by 5+ points. The championship will be sealed up before they head to Indianapolis.
Saw Robbie come through in the later Creed black and blue BMW.
Purple sector 1, he's on a flyer.
Could be a car to watch. How about Tommy Milner? 5th at the moment. Good middle sector that time, his personal best, but not enough to make a dent at the top. There's Neil Verhagen, he's still pushing. First sector was a slight improvement, gave up a little time back in the middle.
Foley's on a flyer though.
Yep.
He's gonna test Verhagen here for the pole if he can complete the lap. Here he comes.
Robbie Foley, the New Jersey native, goes to the top, a 1:20.743.
That was nice. Oh, and Verhagen's wide.
Neil still pushing. Couldn't find the grip that he needed in turn 1. Samantha Tan, his teammate, looks on with consternation. Kept the car pointed straight though.
Yeah, it lost a couple of tenths on that previous lap to his personal best lap of 20.9. Tried to ask a little bit more of the race car down in turn 1. It's a high-speed commitment there. Minimum speed is right around 100 miles an hour. You can see that drivers can push the limits and get away with it a little bit here. So it's good to see that we're going to see some hardcore racing here, and drivers can continue.
Decent lap from Milner. It's his personal best, jumps him from 6th to 5th, just around Elliott Skier. So Skier now 3rd of the Pro Class cars. And this again, the car they're fighting in the championship, slight edge to the Corvettes.
It is, but for those Corvette boys, they need that big points gap. They need that 7-point margin between 1st and 2nd, get the victories. That's the only way they're going to eat into that 35-point lead that Skier and Adelson currently hold.
Look on provisional pole in that class for Random Vandals. How about the Montreal Motorsports Group team? Kyle Marcelli, Jean-Frederic Leberge scored podium in their debut at Road America. Kyle Marcelli's on a personal best lap right now with green sectors 1 and 2. Just a couple corners left here. Just this left-hander up onto the pit straight.
I haven't seen anyone eat that curb up in turn 16 like Kyle just did.
Did it work for him? Enough to get a little bit quicker. Jumps Andy Lee for 12th overall. Custodio Toledo and Ricardo Agostini, they're done with their qualifying. They'll start no better than 3rd for race 2 tomorrow. Pro-Am cars 1st, 2nd, and 3rd on the leaderboard with under 3 minutes to go in qualifying 2.
Totally pushing again. I think he's about a 10th off his personal best, which was, I believe, purple in sector 1. Continue to push. It's a decent lap, but he's not setting up the, lining up the scoreboard with personal bests.
And he may not need it anyway. Doesn't seem like anyone's on a lap that would threaten him for
He
the pole.
gave up between 16 and 17, just try to set up his exit speed here for maybe a last lap dash to try and find a bit more pace here.
Foley continuing to push.
You can hear the tires really screaming at him here. Spoke to him yesterday, said, yeah, keeping that left front is going to be the key during the race stints here. A little bit concerned. He said when they tested here, it was a lot warmer, and he said we felt that we kept the balance on the race car better in the warmer conditions than we've seen here so far this weekend, which was a bit of a surprise for him and their engineer, Jay Townsend.
It's been a season of 2 halves for Robbie and Justin Rothberg. 4 podiums in the first 6 races, but just 1 since then. Now the good news is it was a win, race 1 at Road America, on what was a great day for Justin Rothberg. He won also that day in GT America competition, but it leaves them with a big points gap to try and overcome, and just 2 sprint races in 1 enduro with which to do it. Sellers jumps to 10th in the car he shares with Bryson Morris, who I thought was super impressive on debut at Road America, especially in race 2 when they had an uninterrupted run.
Yeah, really impressive young driver. Saw him race in TCR competition a couple of weeks ago, and he put the car on the pole there as well. So really impressive young kid who's going to do some great things. Foley hits pit lane, obviously can't find and wrestle any more speed out of that pole-sitting car at the moment.
Couple cars still pushing. One of them, Thomas Sargent, just jumped to 3rd at a purple middle sector. 3rd sector didn't quite go according to plan, but ends up 0.2 of a second off of the pole, and 3rd overall, 3rd in the Pro-Am class. Pro-Am cars 1, 2, 3, 4.
That was really impressive there. We saw a little glimpse there of the Ferrari of Oz Negri bounding over the curbs. I think that was on the entry at turn 8 there.
Down under a minute to go. Brian Sellers on a lap now. Currently 10th, but personal best in the first 2 sectors. Here is Negri. So cool to have Oz get the championship.
Yeah, he was saying with the Ferrari now, the balance performance got a slightly higher ride height, and he said, I just can't get the car to change direction like I want it to and carve some of these corners. So he said it's not the ideal track for the Ferrari. Agostini currently 4th overall on the grid.
Negri up to 10th. Sellers did improve on his lap as well. He's inside the top 10 at 9th. Trent Hedman dropped 2 spots as those 2 put in flying laps, and they take the checkered flag on the track. Kyle Marcelli still out and turning a lap, as is Jeff Burton, who just did a personal best in the first sector. But other than that, no one on a lap of any kind of meaningful pace. This is Burton. Giving up a bit of time there in the middle sector. Car he shares with Philip Ellis. How cool was it to see them not just win, but win overall at VIR a few months ago?
Yeah, it's really great. Very emotional win for Jeff. He was in tears talking to Amanda following that victory, and just love this guy's personality. He keeps digging deep. He's an avid skier, and I think driving this racetrack is probably like going on a downhill run at certain parts of this circuit.
Jeff Burton takes the checkered flag and will start at the back of the field for race 2. But with Philip Ellis as the co-driver and that alternate strategy, don't count them out from a good result, even starting from 16th. There is Justin Rothberg. Talked about him a moment ago. He and Robbie Foley will start from pole in race number 2. Great result for the Turner team. This is big for them as they try to run down the Pro-Am points leaders from ST Racing with limited time. Got a chance to hear from some of the drivers as they hop out of their cars. Let's head to the pits and Amanda.
And congratulations on finding the pole for race 2 here at Barber Motorsports. Calvin and Ryan were just talking about your season at hand and your development from Sonoma to right to this position. Where do you feel you are as a driver in this series?
It's been going really well. Coming into the season, I honestly thought this was just going to be a learning experience. I didn't think the championship was even possible, and now we're in the fight for it, so it's really awesome.
This BMW stands in the way of Samantha Tan and Neil Verhagen in their chase for the championship. Does that go through your thoughts at all?
Oh yeah, we want the championship as well. They want the championship, so it's going to be a good fight between the BMWs for it.
All right, guys. Well, they're going to try to head this down to the 8-hour.
Just need to keep it within 50 points leaving this weekend, and they'll have a shot at it. That's the way it works. On a blustery day here in Alabama, Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, qualifying 2 Pro-Am cars go 1, 2, 3, 4, led by Robbie Foley for Turner Motorsports. Big lap from him at a 120.7, nearly 2/10 clear of Neil Verhagen, trying to keep him honest as those two battle for a Pro-Am championship. Great lap from Tom Sargent as well. Ricardo Agostini in the 4th spot overall. Then Random Vandals. A shout out to them and as well to their leader Paul Sparta, who was a racer himself, of course, suffered a back injury in the crash at Road America. Wish you a speedy recovery, Paul. Hopefully this brings a smile to your face to see your drivers, Kenton Cook and Connor Daly, score a class pole here today in the pro class. They'll lead Tommy Milner and Alec Udell, winners of the last 6 in class, and then points leaders Elliott Skier and Adam Adelson set to line up in the 3rd spot. In the pro ranks, ahead of Beach and Mars, Oz Negri turned in the 10th fastest time to take pole, admittedly by default, for AF Corsa in the lone AM class car here this weekend. And again, don't sleep on the car that starts last. They've used this strategy to great success already this year. Jeff Burton, Philip Ellis, must-see TV on the GT World Challenge America weekend. Should also mention good bounce back for Suez Povolato Racing. They had just a miserable weekend at Road America, a crash and then a mechanical issue. They didn't even get to race in GT America or Fanatec GT, but they're here this weekend and looking to bounce back in a big way, and certainly a step towards that, getting through qualifying cleanly here today. Got a chance to check in with the veteran Oz Negri, who's standing by with Amanda.
And Jay, we were talking off camera, just the commitment that this place takes. Your first time here, you called it scary. How do you fight through that?
You just got to trust the car. You got to trust your notes, trust your work. You know, we put in a little bit of testing yesterday before the rain came, and it's trust. It takes trust.
Very cool, Jay. Good luck today. And guys, I was talking to him off camera about joining the SRO paddock. It will be a full season effort for that team next year as well.
It's great to hear. And of course, it wasn't Oz because he has to drive the car to Parc Fermé. So apologies there. But good to hear from Jay, who did win at Road America when there were a couple of AM class entries. Fun to see that competition spark to life, and the 2 entries split that weekend at Road America. And now just Oz and Jay here this weekend at least. But we'll see what the field looks like come Indianapolis. This place is one of a kind. Can't wait to see how it races. It's been a long, long time since we've seen top-level GT3 racing here at Barber Motorsports Park.
Yeah, I think managing those tires is going to be a key to victory here this afternoon and in race 2 tomorrow. Warm conditions, no threat of rain, it looks like. It's going to be a fun weekend.
It should be, and a nice mixed-up field as we're used to seeing. The grid for race 1 looks a lot different from the grid from race 2. You know you're at Barber Motorsports Park when you see shots like this. You just don't see giant spiders and ants and Coke bottles and Yetis anywhere else that we go in North America. Unique might be thrown around a bit too much, but I think it suits this place. It truly is one of a kind. And a big thanks to George Barber for what he has brought to us with this wonderful facility. Looking at highlights from a pair of qualifying sessions, relatively tame. Kyle Washington might disagree because he went on this wild ride, but was able to keep the car out of the fence. Didn't have a great qualifying result for race 1, but Tom Sargent was one of the stars of qualifying 2, keeping it out of the fence and gave Tom the chance to star in that second session. Tough one for the points leaders in Pro. Elliott Skier, Adam Adelson, flirting with the track limits on a couple of occasions. Really was a BMW show in a lot of respects, certainly in qualifying 2, where Robbie Foley took pole position over Neil Verhagen, the pole in the Pro class to Brandon Bengals.